So let's talk about JavaScript, let's talk about React, let's talk about coding, generally speaking. Can anybody out there tell me what's the most popular programming language in the world? Can anyone give me some, ideas about programming language popularity these days? JavaScript. Oh, JavaScript, Java. Interesting. But which one is the on top of the popularity chart? Nice. I like that. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting approach. I mean, I'm not gonna tell you my thoughts about this. I'm gonna share GitHub's reports. So, can anyone tell me what GitHub is? Can anyone tell me a very simplistic description about what GitHub is supposed to do? I don't understand that. That's too complicated for me. Imagine that I've never touched a computer, so I need you to tell me. What GitHub is, assuming I don't have any technical background. Yes. Nice. Yeah, I like that. So essentially, we can think that GitHub is some sort of cloud where we can send a copy of our code. Yeah, I'm obviously oversimplifying the description of what GitHub is, but if we've never heard about it, that should give us an estimation about what is it for. Yeah? So GitHub, no one knows about coding more than GitHub. They store more than 95% of the code worldwide. Yeah, there are hundreds of thousands of projects hosted by them because of multiple reasons. Yeah? So according to GitHub, JavaScript is the most popular programming language these days. If you were thinking that was for Python, unfortunately that's not true. Actually, Python has never been as popular as JavaScript. And to be fair, according to GitHub, JavaScript is more popular than the second, which is Python, and the third, that is Java combined. That should give you an idea about how popular JavaScript is. And now my next question is, why? Why is it so popular? Can you give me any reason? It's a full stack language. I like that. Yes, that's a really good answer, actually. JavaScript, starting from 2009, I believe, JavaScript is a full stack language. That means that it works on the front end. Front end means, the web browser, right? Google Chrome, Safari, Firefox, whatever. Yeah, it works on the front end, but now it also works on the back end. So we can create APIs, we can integrate our applications with external services, we can manage security, we can deal with encryption, all these things that sit beyond the scope of the browser can be now managed with JavaScript as well, thanks to runtime environment. What's the name, guys, of the environment running JavaScript in the backend? It's Node.js. That's correct, Node.js. And you may be thinking, but why is this so important? Let me go back in time. Before 2009, if you wanted to build an app, a web application, you needed at least two developers. Someone working on the front end with JavaScript, and you needed someone else working on the backend. Because JavaScript was not supported on the backend, you had to learn things like Java, C#, PHP, whatever, which is obviously there's nothing wrong on that, right? But I hope you get the point. It was more complicated to scale your software because you needed two developers speaking different languages. Yeah. Thankfully now, because JavaScript works everywhere, every developer speaks the same language. So JavaScript is a full stack language. Let me go back in time a bit more. Before 2009, there was another reason, and arguably still today, that's the most important reason why JavaScript is so popular. JavaScript was firstly released in 1995, 24 and a half years ago, guys. Long time ago. I'm sure some of you were not even born at that time, right? So in 1995, obviously the web was nothing compared to what it is today, right? However, it was trendy. It was trendy, and many developers realized there was a lot of potential. So do you know, guys, which was the most popular web browser back in 1995? No, not close at all. Netscape, fantastic. Netscape 4 was the most popular web browser in 1995. They realized that there was a lot of potential on the web, because at that time the only thing we could do with the web browser is just displaying weird tables and colors. You may remember that, guys. Assuming you can see my screen, let me do a quick search on Google 90s website. You can, I don't know what are we going to get here, but probably something a bit weird. Look at that. If any of you is a UI designer, yes, be careful, guys. Not safe for work, this content. Look at that, yeah? So that was the type of things that we used to build in the 90s, very rudimentary. So adding some sort of programming language capabilities to the web browser obviously will foster app development. And then Netscape, they knock some doors, and they ask different programming languages like Python. Hey, Python, do you want to be compatible with me? Do you want to be able to run Python snippets as part of a web browser? And Python didn't really care. They knocked Java's door, and they didn't care neither, even though they had something called applets. You may remember applets from the 90s, yeah? But they didn't actually make a big effort to be part of the browser ecosystem. And eventually they knocked JavaScript door, and JavaScript accepted the challenge of running inside of a web browser. So now, I hope you agree with me, guys. The web browser is the most important piece of software that you all install when you get a new device. A web browser is everywhere. It's on your laptop, it's on your desktop, it's on your mobile, it's on your tablet, it's on your smart TV, of course, even in some small watches. Yeah. So the web browser is everywhere. As a side effect, JavaScript is everywhere too. So JavaScript is not necessarily easier to learn than other programming languages, even though we may have a very interesting discussion about this. However, JavaScript runs everywhere. And when I mean everywhere, it's literally everywhere. So JavaScript sits beyond the scope of a web browser. I'm sure the majority of you are running desktop applications written in JavaScript and you don't even know, right? So that's why JavaScript is so popular. Historically speaking, it was very difficult to build proper, powerful applications with JavaScript. However, things have changed a lot. And now the language is very powerful to deal with complex use cases scenarios. However, there is one particular aspect of the development journey where JavaScript is still not as powerful as we would desire. And I'm talking about building user interfaces. So, does anybody know what's the most popular JavaScript framework / plugin / library / whatever to build user interfaces efficiently? Oh, React. That's interesting. Probably you're right. React is one of the most popular JavaScript components to build user interfaces. And who looks after React? Who is the owner of the library? It's Facebook. That's correct. React is owned and maintained by Facebook. React is a UI library. It's not a framework. Even though it goes beyond the scope of this session to explain the differences, guys, never go to a job interview and never share that React is a framework, because they will invite you to leave the building. Yeah, as part of our bootcamp, we look after these details to make sure that we nail the job interviews. Yeah? So yeah, React is a JavaScript library created by Facebook, who arguably, let me remark, arguably, it is at the moment the most popular component to build user interfaces. Before React, does anyone know who was the former king of JavaScript? No one? Yeah, so before React dominated the JavaScript world, who was the king of JavaScript about building web applications? Angular, fantastic. I love that. Yes, it was Angular. And Angular, which is not a library, it is a framework. So who is the owner still today of Angular? Google, that's correct. You see, guys, please pay attention to the big picture. Even if we are talking about many technicalities about how to build web applications, at the end of the day, we've got Google versus Facebook once again. And the reason is they obviously realized a long time ago that whoever dominates JavaScript, they can dominate the software industry, and that means a lot. So we got Google represented by AngularJS, then we got Facebook with React, and now if we look ahead on the horizon, who is the main rival these days of React? Does anyone know? Vue, someone say that Vue.js, that's correct. Vue.js is at the moment the most important rival, the main competitor of React. And does anybody know who looks after Vue? It's not obvious, yeah? Is it Microsoft? Is it Amazon? Is it Tinder? Who is that? Right, that's not obvious, guys. It's not obvious. Generally speaking, we answer that question as the Chinese, which sounds a bit weird, right? The Chinese. Who is the Chinese? Whoever that group of people is, China is requesting their slice of the cake. Yeah, and it's very interesting. Because JavaScript, that has been dominated by the Americans since 1995, is now moving towards Asia because Vue is attacking the kingdom of Facebook. Yeah, there are some huge companies behind Vue.js, or at least supporting it. I'm sure you know some of these, like Alibaba, yeah, Amazon's competitor. They are putting a lot of money. Even though they don't really own Vue, they are unofficially supporting it a lot. So, who is the king? Is it React or is it Vue? This is a very complicated question, right? I'm sure if you search on Google, you may get different answers depending on the criteria. However, let me share with you my criteria. Both Vue and React are open source projects. That means that they are free, and anybody can improve them. If you got the necessary coding skills, you can improve these projects. So how do you improve them? Through GitHub. So once again, guys, GitHub, which is the place where the code is, they host both React and Vue projects. So let's pay attention to the popularity of its library. Look, this is the React project. Nice to meet you. And on the right hand side, we can see the number of people, number of developers who have started projects. This project. So we got 148k developers liking React. But now the question is, what about Vue.js? Is it more or less than 148K. Let's figure out, guys. Look, 163K. So according to this criteria, Vue.js already is more popular than React, which is very, very, very impressive. Yeah? Both Vue and React have many similarities, many similarities. Yeah? But it's important to know that, trying to see what's the next big thing, it is probably Vue. And now the point is, why are we talking about React if Vue is already more popular according to this criteria? Well, the main reason is that at least in Europe and in America, React is still more popular. Globally speaking, that may not be the case anymore, because in Asia, Vue is the thing to learn, but at least in Europe and in the US, React is still in April 2020 the king. Yeah, we work with many companies looking for developers, and the majority of them are still looking for React developers. However, keep an eye to Vue, because things can change. And when talking about JavaScript, things used to change quickly. All right, so after this boring introduction, I'd like to start coding with React. Guys, I'm sorry, but I have to mute some of people because I can hear some background noise. Sorry about that. Feel free, guys, of course, to unmute yourself whenever you want to participate. Within the next 45 minutes approximately, I would like to start building an app using React. So the very first thing we need to do is to open a terminal. The terminal is that black and white window where you can type some commands and you can tell, hey, look, ma'am, I'm a hacker. This is a terminal. So you need to open a terminal, and you have to install something called Create React App. So this is a command line tool to easily install new applications using React. If you don't know how to do that, I'm gonna share on the channel chat, I'm sharing the link to a video that we have recorded where we explain how to install it. That's the first step. Yeah, you have to install that tool. Without the tool, it may take you 2 or 3 days just to have a Hello World application. But thanks to that tool offered for free by Facebook, by the way, you can start building amazing applications within minutes. So what we are gonna do is to type Create React App and then space. So now finally we have to type the name of your application. The name of your application will be just a folder in your system. So just do whatever you want, guys. I don't really mind what you build. I used to say that I don't care if you build an app to see, the results of the Premier League, or an app to link with your favorite movies, or if you build an app about, your favorite porn actors. I don't care. I don't really care. The most important thing about software is to build something you feel motivated about. In my particular case, I'm gonna build an app to display a list of, movies, for instance. Yeah, I would like to display a list of movies, and then we'll take it from there. Yeah, of course, feel free to change the topic. Feel free to talk about a list of favorite cooking recipes or list of favorite politicians. I don't mind, guys, whatever. So look, because this is gonna be a new folder in my system, I'm gonna avoid any weird character like accents and things like that. So let me call it Create React App space best movies. So once you hit enter, Facebook will download all the components, plugins, dependencies, utilities, blah, 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 blah you need in order to start building a React application. In the 90s, when companies like Google or Amazon started to operate, building the first application was probably something as simple as doing right-click, new file, index.html, and then everything was manual. Yeah. However, things have changed a lot. Now we need to deal with multiple dependencies, but thankfully, Facebook is doing that for us. So that process may take 3 or 4 minutes. In the meantime, I would like to open a code editor. The code editor is that software where you can build your application by creating files, folder, and stuff like that. Guys, do you have any favorite code editor? VS Code, fantastic. VS Code, nice. Many people talking about VS Code. Let me tell you something, guys. Yes, VS Code is today the most popular code editor according to Stack Overflow. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Stack Overflow. If not, that's essentially a place where developers have questions and other developers provide meaningful or not that meaningful answers. Yeah. So according to Stack Overflow, VS Code is the most popular code editor. Let me tell you something. I've been participating in some international JavaScript conferences, and I remember in 2015, I was one of the speakers at the Google conference, and I remember that all the employees from Google, all the JavaScript engineers, they were using VS Code. And at that time, 2015, I had no idea what VS Code was. Guys, it's easy to get confused. One thing is Visual Studio, and another thing is Visual Studio Code. These are two radically separate tools. Visual Studio, the old one, is to develop C# and ASP.NET applications. It has, I think, a purple logo. However, VS Code is mainly intended for JavaScript applications, even though you can deal with other programming languages, of course. If you prefer to work with other editors like Sublime or like Atom or like WebStorm, IntelliJ, whatever, that's fine. We at Codery, we are not very opinionated about the tool you use to build code. For us, the important thing is the result, the outcome. How you build that piece of software is completely irrelevant to our standards. Yeah? However, if you are not very opinionated about this, let me invite you to start using VS Code. Some advantages about VS Code. First of all, it's free. You don't pay for it. It's open source, so you can improve it. It has a really good support for plugins. You get a new version every month, so it's always fresh, always new stuff. It's supported by a big company, which is Microsoft. And guys, does anyone know in which language VS Code is written? That's correct. Visual Studio Code is written in JavaScript. So if you want to become a successful JavaScript developer, you should trust JavaScript tooling. Alright, so once I hopefully convince you to use VS Code, let's open it. So once you download it, downloading it, just double click. You download it, you install it, double click next, acceptance and conditions, blah, blah, blah. Eventually you'll get something like that. Yeah. So the first thing we're going to do is to open the project that we have just created. So I click on the open folder link, and now you have to find where the folder containing your project is. Here is where some Meetup members used to get confused, guys, where the hell your folder is. If you are using a Mac, that's pretty simple, because by default, unless you do something exotic, your project will be on your home directory. Yeah, this is my case, Best Movies. So you select it and you click open. If, however, you are a Windows user, finding your home directory may be a bit more challenging, because the home directory is located in something like C:// users slash your username, whatever it is. For instance, sexyboy25 slash and then the name of your project. Could be, in my particular case, best movies. Yeah, so that will be the template pointing to your home directory if you are using Windows. And if you're using Linux, hey, I'm sure you know how to do it. Cool. So once you got that, the next thing is to start the application. Can anyone tell me how do you start a JavaScript application? How do you make it available to your customers locally, at least? Does anyone know how to do that? Yes, which in other words is as simple as typing npm start. So what npm start means, we need to open a terminal again, and in the terminal we have to type npm start. I'm not gonna do it here. Sorry guys, I need to mute someone because otherwise it's a bit difficult. Sorry about that. Yeah, so how do we start the server? We can type npm start in a terminal, but once again, I'm not gonna do it here. Why? Look, I got my code on VS Code. I got my terminal here. It's fine, I could type my commands here, but how you agree with me, guys, that then my server is somehow disconnected from my code? Yeah? Two different windows. I love to play ping pong, but I don't like to do ping pong with my windows. Yeah. In other words, is there a way to start my server from VS Code? Yes, it is. Thankfully, VS Code comes with an integrated terminal. If you go to the menu on top and you select terminal, new terminal, then you can see at the bottom I got a terminal where I can type my hacky commands. And now, once I got my terminal open, I can hopefully type npm start. Npm start, guys, is the de facto standard way of opening your JavaScript applications. In other words, to make them available. You know that JavaScript apps, at least the web apps, they run on a server. So we have to enable that server so your customers can consume it. You know, when you go to a website, www.google.com, yeah, it works because there is a server. Well, for Google, they have thousands of servers, but that's the same thing. That's the same strategy, the same idea. Yeah, they had to start the server so the consumers of Google can access the content. So once you type the command, you will see that eventually the server will become available. It may take a while. In my particular case, guys, because I'm probably because I'm streaming, I'm recording, I'm doing lots of things at the same time, it takes longer, but eventually you get that message, compiled successfully, blah 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 blah. So if you get that green message, compiled successfully, then hopefully you got something like that. Yeah? I didn't manually type that URL. React did it for me. So React automatically opened a new tab in my browser with that address. I don't really care about what the address is, to be honest. The important thing here is to notice that I got that spinning logo, which is the React icon, by the way. That has nothing to do with Chernobyl, guys. This is the React logo. So if you get this screen, then your laptop is ready to start building React applications. If not, if you get any errors, please refer to the setup video I have shared with you on Hangouts on the chat panel. Is there any questions so far, guys? Is anyone there, guys? Am I talking to myself? Cool. Awesome. Thank you for the feedback, guys. Appreciate it. So yeah, that's pretty much the setup. By the way, if you got any questions, guys, please don't drop any message, because I cannot actually check the chat panel, unfortunately, in real time. Yeah. So please feel free to unmute yourself and to participate on this session. All right. So I know that we don't used to read instructions, right? Especially men, we don't used to read instructions. When we buy a new TV, we don't read instructions. Who reads the instructions of a new TV? However, you know, in this particular case, instructions are literally one line. So let's do an exceptional effort of reading that single line of of next steps. Look, edit src or source/app.js and save to reload. In other words, Facebook is inviting us to go to VS Code and then opening the src folder /app.js. So once you have that, look, you got the source code. Yeah, you got a file with some variables, functions, whatever. Guys, is that programming language any familiar to you? Do you know what markup language are we referring to in the app.js file? HTML, fantastic. Historically speaking, oh, brilliant. So we got two answers, and both are valid, even though one is more valid than the other. Someone said HTML, someone said JSX. Let's talk first of all about the big picture, and then we'll narrow the issue. So from a big picture perspective, this is some sort of HTML, and this is one of the reasons why React became so popular. It's not the only one I'm going to refer to today, but this is clearly one of them. Historically speaking, any new framework, any new library, they always try to reinvent the wheel, to introduce a new way of dealing with things. Thankfully, React, they changed the mindset a bit. They thought, hey, wait a minute. If something works, what's the point of reinventing the wheel? What's the point of redefining a way of building something if there is an existing alternative to build that particular bit? And that's a good example. Even if you have no idea how React works, even if you have no idea about JavaScript at all, you can reuse all you know about HTML. Yeah? Because React is based on HTML principles. However, if you know a bit of HTML, is there anything smelly in that piece of code? Can you spot anything that you don't feel very comfortable with from an HTML markup point of view? Well, that's a good point. Definitely, that's a good point. When you work with HTML and JavaScript application, you got a file for JavaScript and you got a different file for HTML. Fantastic. I buy that argument. Yeah. So that's something smelly. Yeah. Like, hey, here that's a JavaScript file, but then we are dropping some HTML code inside of it. That's not valid from a JavaScript point of view, but thanks to React, we can do that, and that's great because that's a way to simplify your development journey. However, guys, is that class name attribute something valid in HTML? No. How do you do that in HTML? How do you add styles? Class, correct. You are absolutely right, guys. In other words, even though, guys, that looks like HTML, we got divs, we got headers, we got images, that sounds familiar, definitely. However, that's not exactly HTML, strictly speaking. Some things are slightly different. That's why, technically speaking, even though that looks like HTML, in reality, as someone already spotted, this is JSX. yeah, which is a variation of HTML. Yeah. Interestingly enough, even though JSX was firstly introduced by React in 2013, now Vue is adopting it as well. And this is an amazing thing. That's an amazing thing, because this is simplifying the process of, moving from one to the other. Yeah. So that's JSX, which is a very similar version of HTML. It goes beyond the scope of this session to explain the differences, actually. Anyway, let's do something, guys. Let's introduce a change. Look, I'm gonna get rid of my header tag, and I want to display something like welcome to the movies app, and then an exclamation mark. Once you save the file, don't forget, guys, the files have to be saved. Back to the web browser, boom. You see, I don't even have to refresh the page. It's happening under the hood automatically. Welcome to the movies app. Yeah, you see how cool this is. You change something, you save the file, and then once you save the file, after a couple of seconds, hopefully even less than that, we got the title updated. Yeah, as you probably noticed already, I didn't even have to save the file because this is happening automatically. We at Cody in the bootcamp, we focus on productivity a lot, yeah, about how to build more stuff in less time. But for now, I think it's okay to just manually save the file. Cool. Imagine that I'm zooming the screen, that's why the title looks quite decent. But if I play it at full resolution, you will see that the title of my app is very small. So can anyone tell me how can I change the size of my text just using HTML? I don't really like that, because if I add a style attribute, I may be adding inline styles, and I'm not a big fan of adding inline styles because of reasons that go beyond the scope of this session. Fantastic, I love that. H1, H2. Yeah, so H1, which is just a heading tag in HTML, that's what we call a semantic tag, that will change, as you can see, the size of my text, which looks much bigger, much nicer, much bolder in this occasion. Yeah, which is great, because this is giving us some sort of confidence about what are we building. All right, so now once we feel comfortable with the setup of our application, let's start building a list of items. In my particular case, I'm going to build a list of movies, some of my favorite films. Feel free to change the topic to whatever you want today. So how do we do that? I'm going to create a div. For now, a div is just a container in HTML to wrap some elements, and inside of the div, let me add, for instance, the title of one of my favorite movies. So, for instance, Megazord versus Crocosaurus. So once you change that, then we go back to the web browser, and then we evaluate that the outcome is the expected. Guys, I'll tell you something. I've been interviewing, I don't know, probably almost 200 people during my career, and there is a classic mistake I see often from developers I had the opportunity to interview. I've seen many developers working on the source code, adding changes, boom, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, blah, 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 20 minutes of changes, and then back to the web browser after 20 minutes, and oh, surprise, nothing works. Yeah. Never do that. Never do that. Even if you are an experienced developer, make sure you follow baby steps. And what that means, baby step means you change something, then you check the result. If the result satisfies your appetite, then you move to the next change. If it doesn't, then you keep working on that individual change. Why? Because if I ruin it, if I introduce a mistake and the result is not the expected one, at least I know that I broke it on my most recent change. However, if I coding for 20 minutes and I ruin it, I don't know if I broke it after the second change 20 minutes ago or after my last change 20 minutes or 20 seconds ago. It's much harder to deal with problem solving. Yeah. So I've done something, back to the web browser, it looks okay, so then I move to the next step. So what's the, yeah, go for it. Every time you change, can you repeat the question, please? Yes. No. I'm just saving the file. I'm saving my file. You change something and you have to save the file. How do you save the file? Well, this is just saving a file like Microsoft Word. File, save, or in Windows you type Control S, on Mac you type Command S. The thing is, I'm not even saving the file because I got a script that is saving the files for me. Yeah, but this is something unrelated to this workshop. You can Google that. You can search how to ask VS Code to save files for us. Yeah. Cool. Thank you for the question. Appreciate it. So we got the first title, Megashark versus Crocosaurus. The next thing I would like to do is to add a picture. And interestingly enough, adding a picture in React is maybe slightly more complicated than you maybe think about. To express how to add a picture in React, I used to present an analogy. The analogy is, imagine that you want to drink some milk, but you don't have any milk. So there are 3 steps involved, generally speaking. First of all, you go to the supermarket. Yeah? You go to the supermarket and you buy the milk. That's the first step. Yeah? You need to find the milk. The second step is, imagine that the milk is not cold enough, so you put it into the fridge. You save it somewhere. And the third step is eventually you drink the milk, you consume it. Yeah, these 3 steps. So this is an analogy about how to display a picture with React. Remember, first step with the milk, let's go to Tesco, to Sainsbury's, anywhere to buy some milk. Yeah. So talking about pictures, let's go to Google to find the picture. Yeah, that has nothing to do with coding as such. So going to Google and typing Megashark versus Crocosaurus, and I will move to the Images tab. And hopefully that will display a bunch of pictures about the movie. So I will pick one of these and I will do right click, save image as. Be careful now. Be careful. Before you save the picture, a couple of friendly advices. First of all, be careful where you save the movie. Don't save it on your desktop. Don't save it on your downloads folder. No. Modern software is self-encapsulated. In other words, all the resources, all the files, all the components, all the assets, audio, video, images, source code, whatever, all the resources should remain inside of the project folder. And to be more precise, please save your files inside of the src folder. So once you do that, then you can save the picture. But before doing that, please rename it. Sometimes Google is a bit funny when naming pictures, right? Some pictures have a very weird concatenation of alphanumerical characters. Because we'll have to type that manually afterwards. Please make sure you simplify things a bit. Megashark, for instance, and then you save it. So what happens when you save your file? You can see that the VS Code is automatically listing the picture on my src folder, which is great. So we've managed to complete the first step. We managed to go to Tesco wearing our security mask, and then we got the milk, and now we're putting the milk into the fridge, step number 2. So what putting the milk into the fridge means? We need to import it. We need to make it available so we can consume it later on. So to import the milk, what we do, to import the picture, what we do is import, and then we display the name of the picture. It doesn't matter what you type next. I'll go back to this point in a minute. You can type whatever you want next. So let me call it Megashark. And then from, finally, we have to specify the location of your picture. Can anyone tell me, please, how do I access a file that sits on the same folder? It's a sibling, it's a neighbor of the file I'm dealing with. That has nothing to do with React, nothing to do with JavaScript, nothing to do with programming languages. That is some sort of command line pattern. How do you access a file which is on the same folder as the current one? File name, correct, with a dot slash, ideally. Yeah, with dot slash, that may be optional in this particular case. Dot slash means, hey, the file I'm looking for is a sibling, is on the same folder. So finally, we type the name of the file, megashark.jpg. Goes without saying, guys, please be careful with the extension. Be careful with the case. JavaScript is a case-sensitive programming language, so be careful, guys, with the case of your variable names. And eventually, we're gonna display the picture by typing img, which is the same as you do with HTML, then src, and now in HTML you will do something like dot slash blah 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 megashark.jpg. That's not really React friendly. In React, guys, please pay attention to the syntax, because I'm gonna refer to it a couple of times within the next minutes. My picture is saved here in Megashark. Megashark is a JavaScript variable. Whenever you wanna access a JavaScript variable inside of HTML, you surround it with curly braces or curly brackets. Once you type the curly brackets or curly braces, you type the name of your picture, something like that. You see? Image, same as HTML, src, same as HTML, but then we spot the difference. Curly brace, Megashark, and then you close the curly brace. Let's see if it works. Back to our web application, and boom! Kudos! We got our Megashark versus Crocosaurus picture on the screen. Guys, I got a question for you. Will it work if I rename the variable name to Brexit? Yes, you're right, it will. That's arguably the only scenario where Brexit will work as expected. We're not talking about Brexit anymore these days, right? But as you can see, it still works. Why? Because, as I mentioned before, we are saving our picture into this container. So eventually, we're just referring to it. So even though technically speaking it works, if you were discussing about this algorithm, this snippet, this component in a job interview, what would you say? Are you happy with that? Would you sign this component or not? What do you think about it? Why not? I like the argument. I completely agree with you. You may be thinking that coding is a complicated task. However, when talking about coding, we tend to underestimate how difficult reading code is. Reading code eventually is way more complicated than writing code. Yeah? And this is a good example. Brexit is a horrible variable name. Hey, it works. However, we are difficulting the process of telling, informing, communicating what the hell our component is supposed to do. So let's rename it to Megashark. what if I use a capital S? Do you know what's the name of this case? The case I'm using here, where I got two words, mega and sarc, separated by a big S. Do you know what's the name of this case? Camel case. Fantastic. You're right, guys. It's camel case because the word has the shape of a camel somehow, maybe. Yeah. And what if I'm a PHP developer and I'm used to different syntax, mega sarc with the underscore? What's the name of this case? A snake case. Fantastic. Yes, it's a snake case because it's going up and down, as you can see here. Yeah. What else? What if I go back to the camel case syntax, however I capitalize it? In other words, the first character starts with capital. What's the name of this case? That's a bit more complicated. Upper camel case. That's very romantic, and I'm not sure if that's actually correct or not. Yes, technically speaking, it's upper camel case. However, there is a way to describe the upper camel case syntax, which is Pascal case. Because Pascal, which is a very old programming language, it was one of the first one to introduce, to popularize that sort of syntax. And last one, guys, what if all the cases I presented you before are valid, but the next one is not. However, in other scenarios, we may be able to deal with that case where the different words are joined by a dash or by a hyphen. What's the name of this case? Camel case. Sorry, what you said? Can you repeat that? A kebab case. That's correct. It is kebab case. That's right. Yeah, it is kebab case. Why kebab case? Because when you go to Fabric on Saturday night and you get drunk and you go to the to the place at 3 a.m. to buy a kebab, you see the blade going through the meat on the kebab shop. This is supposed to be the hyphen. Yeah. So kebab case is probably the most popular way of describing this case, even though historically speaking, before probably the kebab was even created, developers used to refer to it as Lisp case, because once again, similar to the Pascal example, Lisp was one of the first programming languages to popularize it. So let's ignore the kebab case and let's focus on the others. We got camel, we got snake, and we got Pascal. Which one should we use? All of them are valid. But which one should we use? And why? No clue? Aha. That's interesting. Camel case for readability. I think that's a good argument. However, even though I agree with you, other developers may disagree with us. Yeah, because for the developers that may be not as readable as other cases. The thing here is, we are expected to follow conventions. We at Code in our bootcamp, we follow conventions all the time. Because following conventions means we understand the standards. In this particular case, we are talking about styling standards. Styling standards means how many break lines are we adding before a return statement? How many indentation level tabs or spaces we add on each line? How many spaces, single quotes, double quotes, all these sort of questions that sit beyond the functionality. In other words, these are not going to make any impact. The code is going to work regardless of whether you use one or the other. It should work. Sometimes it stops working. If it stops working, just refresh your page. So you can see, it doesn't matter if I use single quotes or double quotes to declare my class argument. Everything works, right? So there is, however, someone inviting the community for instance, to use double quotes when dealing with JSX arguments. And someone is also inviting us to use camel case instead of Pascal or snake case. Someone is defining that styling convention. And we should all follow that convention, because if we all follow that convention, we are all speaking the same dialect, and that facilitates the communication process. But, there is always a but. Who is creating? Who decides that convention? Is it me? Is it Boris Johnson? Is it the Pope? Who builds that convention for the community? Anyone know? We all agree. That's very romantic, but that's not necessarily true. Someone said something very interesting. Someone pronounced the magic word ECMAScript. Unfortunately, your answer is wrong. ECMAScript is a very long document. I think it's about 700-page document that specifies how JavaScript works. So JavaScript is based on the standard called ECMAScript. Yeah, ECMAScript tells you, for instance, that if you want to create a function, you should type the word function instead of method. ECMAScript tells that whenever you want to return something, you type return and not return back, whatever. Yeah. So ECMAScript, it's a document that every web browser follows to implement JavaScript. Not just every web browser, every running environment. Also Node.js. Remember, guys, JavaScript also runs on the backend thanks to Node.js. So Node.js is based on ECMAScript. So ECMAScript has nothing to do with the styling, has nothing to do with the decision of using camel case or snake case or spacing or breaklines. Has nothing to do with that. ECMAScript, if you are curious by the way, is defined by a group called TC39, which is an open group. They got a GitHub group where anybody can actually submit new proposals to improve the JavaScript standard. So this non-profit group is based in Switzerland, somewhere in the mountains in the Alps, or maybe not, maybe somewhere in an average WeWork building in Zurich, but it's a different story. Yeah. And once again, I recommend you to search TC39 on GitHub, because you'll find some interesting resources about the future of the language. However, once again, that's not answering our question. ECMAScript has nothing to do with the styling standards. There is something else. There is someone else dealing with that. Can anyone figure out who is that? Yeah, fair enough. Definitely every company has different styles. However, once again, these coding styles are taken from somewhere. In other words, yes, if I have a company, it's my responsibility to design my styles, and my styles could be doing something like that. Or my styles could be adding break lines before the return statement, or my styles could be using single quotes instead of double quotes. I'm sure if you work for, 10 different companies, eventually they will use different styles, and that's a bad thing, because if we use different styles, that means that we speak different accents, and if we speak with different accents, we are complicating the process of getting familiar with the code base. So even though I completely accept every company has different styles, there are some organizations trying to standardize the way companies define their own styles. We're trying to simplify that, to simplify the process of getting familiar with the code. So, which companies are that? There isn't a single company looking after this styling standard. However, one of them is taking advantage, and it is, pay attention guys, Airbnb. They are not making business these days, right? Because of the COVID lockdown. However, they have invested a lot. They have invested a lot on JavaScript and React. And one of the magnificent things they've done within the last few years is to define a very popular style guide about how to deal with JavaScript and React. To the point that if I search React Airbnb style guide, you'll find out on GitHub a very comprehensive article where they will tell you how to use spacing, how to use, for instance, quotes, guys. Look, quotes. Always use double quotes for JSX attributes. Yeah? So you can see it's very nice because they present you different examples. Yeah, don't use single quotes. However, please use double quotes, and they tell you the reasons. So, in regards to this particular example, they tell you that in HTML, typically speaking, we use double quotes. So now you know what's the point of reinventing the wheel. So let's just stick to double quotes. Anyway, so we got that sorted according to Airbnb. We should be using camel case. We're going to stick to that standard. So let's leave it like that. And now let's move on. Let's talk about next steps. Let me add a couple of additional pictures. I got my first one. So let me go to Google and find new pictures of some new movies. So for instance, second one is going to be Sarctopius. I'm actually giving you some friendly recommendations, guys, if you want to experience something amazing during the lockdown. So we got Sarctopius. So the same process, right? Coding is like building a car, guys. It's about integrating. It's about repeating. It's about doing the same thing again. But it's all about mastering that process. So I'm downloading Sarctopius, here you go. And finally, let me find a third movie, Sarc Exorcist. Same process. I'll try to find the cover of Sarc Exorcist, and I will save it into my SRC folder. So, for instance, Exorcist, and then we save it. So, what's next? Well, first of all, let me check. I got my pictures saved. Interestingly, VS Code cannot preview Sarctopius. I'm going to assume this is still correctly saved. Yeah, I think my laptop is just dying, guys. I got too many applications open, but that's fine. I mean, unless there is an issue later on, I'm going to assume that the pictures were correctly saved. So then what? Well, then I'm copy pasting the first movie, and then of course I will update the details. First of all, the title. So the second one was Sarctopius, and the second one was Sarc Exorcist. Yep, Sarc Exorcist. Here you go. Of course, it goes without saying we need to import the images. Import Sarctopius from I can do it, guys. Sarctopius.jpg. Yes, be careful, be extra careful with the extension of the file. It's very easy to fail. And finally, I will import exorcist from exorcist.jpg. So finally, I will refer to the 3 pints of milk that I just put in the fridge. Let's see if it works. So if I refresh the page, We got Megasark Crocosaurus, correct. Sarctopius, correct. And finally, Sark Exorcist, correct. Obviously, UI is far from being perfect, but it goes beyond the scope of this session to talk about how to lay out our React application for different devices, mobile, tablet, laptop, etc. Yeah, we may talk about that in a future edition of this workshop. Anyway, we got our 3 pictures. So now I got a question for you. Imagine that we release this web application, we start getting traction on the market, thousands of customers, millions in revenue, we start hiring developers, and now the head of UX suggests that maybe the movie titles are very small. In other words, sorry guys, I pressed something somewhere. In other words, UX specialist, UX head of UX is asking us to change the size of the title, of the movie titles. So now my question for you is, how many lines of code do I have to change if I want to increase the font size of my movie titles? Anyone? No, yeah, okay, fantastic. We can do multiple things, but based on what we have so far, if we take a snapshot of the current code base, how many lines of code do I have to change in order to increase the font size of my movie titles? Three lines, that's correct. As we got 3 movies, I have to change 3 lines. You know, it's, for instance, from H5 to H3, H5 to H3, and that's fine. That's okay. I hope you agree on that. However, not sure if you get my point. It's okay. It took me a few seconds because we just have 3 movies. What happened if we will have 3,000 movies? You see the problem. We will need to change 3,000 lines of code, which doesn't scale at all. So this idea of hard coding my list of elements is not okay in the long term, because this is gonna play against the scalability of our software. Based on that, let me introduce one of the most powerful components when talking about, one of the most powerful principles, when talking about React, which is the component. A component is some sort of template that can vomit a piece, excuse me the expression, can generate a bunch of code, a bunch of markup, as many times as we want. Let me present you an example about how to create a component. A component is just a function. Let me call it movie. Please note the component starts with capital. That's a convention when dealing with React. So we are just creating a JavaScript function. If, by the way, you don't know how to create a JavaScript function, I would like to recommend you some tutorials afterwards. So once we got the function, we can return a piece of HTML like hello, meetup, members, and then a happy face. You see? So that's the way a component works. So now the way I can render that component is by displaying it as it was an HTML tag. You see, we got divs, we got h3, we got images, and then we got now movie component. Interestingly, VS Code is smart enough to change the coloring of the movie tag because it's a special tag. It's a React tag. So now, back to the web application. You see, I got my 3 instances of the movie component on the screen. So that's great, because now, as you can imagine, I can replace that silly text with the actual movie component. Before going any further, this looks wrong to me from a styling point of view, because I'm not respecting any indentation guidelines. So eventually you have the ability to indent that correctly if at some point you don't really know how to indent that. VS Code has a fantastic tool to help you. If you do right click anywhere and then you select format document, pop, you see VS Code will do its best to format that piece of HTML for you. To me, that's still not perfect, but hey, that's better than it was. Now, I got a question for you. Can anyone tell me what will be the eventual output of this code footprint? You are absolutely right, my friend. So now we got Megashark versus Crocosaurus on screen 3 times. Why? Because the movie component is just hard coding both the title and the picture associated to that movie. Now, this is a template. As any other template, we can customize its behavior. Look at how explicit, how declarative the process of modifying the template is. If I want to change the title, what I can do is I can pass an attribute, that's an HTML attribute, with my movie title. Megashark versus Crocosaurus, and then Sarctopius, and finally the last one, which is in a second, title equals Sark Exorcist. Yeah. Thank you, Siri. Thank you for nothing. Sark Exorcist. Yeah, something like that. So, will it work now? Will I have 3 different movies on a screen? Why not? So will the title, let's ignore the picture to simplify the problem. Let's ignore the picture. Let's focus on the title. Will the title of each movie be different each time? All right, let's have. Oh, someone said no. Can you argue that? Whoever said no? That's correct. Look, even though we are passing some meaningful details to the movie component, it is ignoring these details. You see, the Megashark versus Crocosaurus title is still hard-coded. In other words, you see, Megashark, and Megashark. So that's not correct. So how can we bind? You see the problem? How can we bind the app component with the movie component? We can pass an argument that we generally speaking call it props, and you can call it however you want, to be honest, but the React community used to call it props. Props is an object. If you have no idea what an object is, it's essentially a collection of key value pairs. It's a dictionary. My user object would contain the first name, the last name, the email, the age, whatever, location, yeah, this is a collection of things. Once again, I'll recommend you some resources after this session. For now, if that's an object, the way we can access properties is with a dot notation. So to access the title, I had to type props.title. And eventually, that will hopefully display the title of each movie. Do you agree on that? Can anyone see any problem? No? All right. Yeah. Tell me. Yeah. That's a fantastic point. Guys, look at what happened. Now the title is very weird. Props.title. You know when it's your birthday and you subscribe by accident to any web application and you get an email on your birthday and they tell you happy birthday $user, things like that, and you say who the hell is $user? That's because they fail to interpolate the template, and that's what's happening here. Do you remember the way I told you 25-30 minutes ago we should access JavaScript inside of HTML? How should we do that? That's correct. We should surround the JavaScript expressions with curly braces. So if we try again, now you got the three titles nicely displayed. So let's pass the picture of each movie. You get the point. Right now it's pretty much about repeating the same thing. Because the picture is a JavaScript variable, once again, when we pass them, we have to surround it with curly braces. So we got Megasarc, and we got Sarctopius, and then we got picture equals exorcist, whatever. So finally, instead of Megasarc, we have to refer to the pictures as props.picture. Yeah? And unless we did something wrong, actually, you see, Sarctopius is wrong. So I failed somewhere. Sarctopius. Guys, I did a typo. Can anyone tell me why Sarctopius is not displayed? Correct. I misspelled picture. Yeah. Thank you very much. So now, when you type it correctly, you can see, ignoring the styling concerns, our titles are in sync with the movie pictures. Do you have any questions so far? No? Cool. I hope you agree with me. This pattern is very powerful. It's very nice. It's super sexy because it's very declarative. It's easy to read, easy to understand, easy to scale. For instance, imagine that we want to rate movies. You know, on IMDb, no, I'm not sure on IMDb, but on Rotten Tomatoes, you know, this website when you heard about the movie, you came across a movie and you want to get some details about it and you want to get the, you want to check whether the community recommends it or not based on their scores. So we can do the same thing, right? We can pass a new property called score equal, let's pass it as a string for simplicity reasons, like 7.8. You can pass a number, 7.1, and then whatever, 4.8. Yeah. So now finally, this is a template, so you can do whatever you want on the template. So you can put score and then props.the score. Yeah, whatever you want. And then you can see that we got the score, displayed alongside the movie title. We can play a bit with the formatting if you want, parentheses, yes, whatever. So you remember before I asked you a question that I'm gonna ask you again. Before I asked you, we got 3 movies, and I asked you how many lines of code we had to amend in order to change their titles, and you told me 3 times because we got 3 movies. If we had 3,000 movies, we will have to change 3,000 lines. Now back to my question: how many lines of code we have to change in order to increase the movie titles? Are you sure about that? Does the current footprint depend on the number of movies we have? If I want to change from H3 to H2, for instance, how many? Yeah, how many lines of code do I have to change to increase the size of the movie title? Just one. Yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter, right? But look, line number 10. Do you agree with me, guys? Now it doesn't matter whether I have one movie, 3 movies, or 3 trillion movies. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. By changing the template, by changing the component, now you can see all the movies took the change. So now our application is much more prepared to scale. It's less error prone. You had to change the movie title 20 times. Naturally speaking, because we are humans, we'll fail to update some of these references. However, if we had to change it only once, it's much easier to ensure that all our titles have the same size. One last tiny details. Probably you notice that on VS Code and the majority of the modern code editors, you got a vertical line on the right hand side. That line is a very friendly way of telling you, hey, you shouldn't write any code beyond that line. You shouldn't, for readability purposes. As you can see, in my use cases scenario, these 3 lines went beyond that logical padding, logical barrier. Yeah. So what you can do is you can, for instance, move the different attributes of my movie component to different lines, and that will improve the readability of my component. And yeah, as you can see. Do you have any questions, guys? Yeah, it was loud and clear, loud and clear. Yes. Yeah, on the return statement. Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned before that I wasn't happy with that. That wouldn't be the way I will structure my markup, and I didn't want to explain that. But obviously, yeah, because you mentioned that, let's do that. So, guys, the reason why I'm not a big fan, and based on what you said, probably you're not a big fan of that neither, is because look, we're opening a div on line number 9 and we're closing it on line number 12. However, these 2 tags, the opening and the closing one, they are not aligned. From a vertical axis perspective, they are not aligned. And that could make the code slightly harder to deal with. Yeah. So how would I improve that? So for instance, you can add a parenthesis, and then once again, right click, format document. So I hope you agree with me that now the code is easier to read, the return statement, because the opening div tag is aligned, vertically speaking, with the closing div tag. Likewise, guys, if we're talking about doing a bit of cleanup, so for instance, you see on line number 2, we're still importing the logo, the React logo. We don't care about that anymore. That came from Facebook, from the default template. You may notice that that line is grayed out. That's because VS Code is telling you, hey, you have a logo, but look at the warning. Logo is declared, but its value is never read. So let's just remove it. Yeah, we shouldn't import anything we are not using. Also talking about potential improvements, I would recommend you to extract components to a new file. Eventually, your application will have hundreds, if not thousands, of components. Obviously, you don't want to drop them all on your app.js. You want to have a component tree, a structure of components where, hierarchically speaking, you can navigate through them. But this is beyond the scope of this session, so I'm not going to explain how to do it now. Does anyone has any other questions, guys? Yes. That's a good decision. We don't need that. That's just a UX decision. These parentheses are just to display the score in a user-friendly way. I can remove them. But if I remove them, yeah, you can see. I'm not. That's not that readable. What's the title of the movie? Mega Salvage Crocosaurio score 7.8. Oh, what the hell is that, right? So this is just a UX decision. That has nothing to do with any sort of JavaScript/React technicalities. Yes. No. Props, it's a JavaScript argument. And that JavaScript argument, it's an object representing all the attributes that we are providing to the movie component. So that's a JavaScript object. Thanks to React, the object is populated with the data. But technically speaking, that has nothing to do with React. There is nothing special about React here. That's just a JavaScript object that React is filling with the information that we are providing to the component. You can call it, instead of props, you can call it COVID if you want, right? So if I call it COVID, it works. It's just a name. It's a random name. Exactly. It's a name representing an object. However, I hope you agree with me, guys. Calling it COVID is a bit unfortunate, if not quite. It's not very unfortunate, because once again, it's not representing the content of my variable. Yeah. So the JavaScript community used to call it props. So let's stick to props. Anything else, guys? Yes. That's a really good question. Yes. When I created this, I said I will pass the score as a string for simplicity reasons. Can I pass it as a number? Look. It doesn't work. Why it doesn't work? Because when dealing with HTML attributes, we can only pass strings. So we got two options. Option A is pass the number as a string. What happens if we really want to pass that as a number because we want to perform some mathematical operation like getting the average, blah, blah, blah. That's still possible by, look, surrounding the number with curly braces. So now, essentially, the message is, hey, curly braces, so I'm going to do some JavaScript inside. Because numbers are obviously a valid expression in JavaScript, then I can do whatever you want inside, right? I could even do things like, I don't know, 3 plus 4, 4.1, 4.2, yeah? That's a valid expression in JavaScript. So Sark Exorcist will have a score of 7.2, as you can see here. Anything else, guys? Yeah. Can we cast the string? So you want to pass a string and then you want to transform it into a number because of whatever reason here, right? Yeah, absolutely. If because of whatever reason you want to transform the score into a number, I'll show you 3 ways. The worst approach is by using parseInt, which is a JavaScript method. Yeah? ParseInt will transform a number represented by a string into a proper number. The second alternative, which is better, is by using the number method. Even though both are equivalent, number is way more performant than parsing, and it goes beyond the scope of this session to explain why. Yeah? But technically speaking, that will do the trick. And the last one of my favorite ones, is just prefixing. We don't even need the parentheses, guys. Just adding a plus prefix. That's a trick. to transform a string into a number. That's a very nice way to, for instance, impress a potential employer, because that's a very smart way of casting string into a number. Anything else? I'll take that as a no. We've got 3 minutes left. 3 minutes left. So let me show you something unrelated. I guess, guys, some of you are part of the Codery platform. This is the non-profit tool that we are delivering to the community. So I would like to invite you to practice with your React JavaScript skills. The way this works is you select a programming language. You see good support for JavaScript, React, Python, Java, many programming languages. And then you select the difficulty level. So this is really from 0 to hero. And then you play with a given topic. Actually, let me do something, guys. Let me zoom my screen. I'm going to play it on mobile mode because Codery is also available on mobile. Yeah, so you are more than invited to download the app for Android or iOS devices. And then let me show you what happened. First of all, imagine this is your mobile phone, guys, in landscape mode. So we present you a problem. The problem is, please create a welcome component. So whenever we execute the component, you should display a message, welcome to React. So when we swipe left, we have to choose the right answer. So this is very, very, very simple. We have to choose the right answer. So if I select the wrong one, which is welcome to React, it fails. Welcome to React to equal welcome to React. I miss the exclamation mark. But once I select the right answer, we got confetti time. Yeah. So we present you a bunch of questions about any particular topic. At the end of the exercise, we give you a score. So the score is essentially telling you how good your performance was according to a series of metrics. Yeah. So once again, the platform is completely free. So feel free to play with it as much as you want. And if you want to collaborate with us, just let us know. This platform is being used by our students, by the way. You got access to many professional video tutorials where you will learn how to build apps from scratch, some of our best workshops, some international conferences we've participated. So, guys, just feel free to explore the free content of Codery. And the very last thing in 30 seconds is, if you like this introduction, FYI, Codery was created 2 years ago as a 2-year plan to help people breaking into tech. I was working as a tech lead at HSBC, and I had to deal with many graduates joining from boot camps, and many of them unfortunately failed to secure a job at HSBC. And because of that, I quit my job, I stopped my commercial activity, and I founded Codery to help people break into tech. Once again, it was a 2-year plan. And interestingly enough, on Monday, 4th of May, we ran our last cohort. So this is your last opportunity to learn professional coding with us. Not just coding, also methodology, agile, job interviewing, all these sort of things are part of the bootcamp. We don't waste your time, we don't waste your money. If any of you is interested, you got the link to book your place. And just as a final word to tell you thank you very much, I would like just to offer a voucher, a promo code, 10% off if you book your place within the next 24 hours. Once again, last cohort in the 4th of May. We've been helping about 170 students so far, but now it's time to move on. So last cohort starting on Monday. So if anyone is interested, here is the 10% off promo code. Apart from that, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to be with you today. I hope you enjoyed this session. It will be available on